Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean, and you're watching Talent Talk. Sorry we're a little bit late this session. We just had a couple little technical difficulties, but I think we're all sorted now. Um, so just to remind you that if you haven't done so already, if you can just go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel and subscribe today. As always, your support's appreciated. And we're also doing or releasing all the episodes this season and hopefully earlier seasons soon to various podcasts such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. If you want a full list, just check out the details in this episode's description. And finally, this is live and interactive. So if you have any comments or questions as the show goes on, feel free to throw them into the chat and we will answer them as the show goes on. Now, today's guest, he's actually on the road right now and stopped to take some time out to chat with me today, so I definitely appreciate that. But he's a fellow I've actually had the privilege of working with directly. And if you don't know his name, you'll likely know his face because he has been in a multitude of film and TV projects ranging from Blackstone and Tribal through the Prairie Dog Film plus Television production company to his more recent role as Chief Bird on the Stars Network hit series Outlander. So, and which is also available on Netflix, by the way. So, if you want to do some binging on that, definitely check it out. And so, it's with great pleasure that I would like to welcome Mr. Glen Gould.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Glenn, how's
How
it
you
going?
doing, Gary?
Good. How are
Good,
you?
good, good, good.
How's the drive so far?
Uh, Roads are good. It's nice weather, just a little windy.
Yeah, yeah. And how long have you been on the road so far today? It's a long
Uh,
drive you're on right now. I know that.
yeah, it's a 16-hour drive altogether. I left at 10 a.m. this morning from Ontario, and it's now 3 p.m. So
Okay.
I've been on
Yeah.
the road for 5 hours now.
And what's your kind of average? Like, when do you plan on kind of taking a break? And well, besides this break,
Uh,
for the night.
I'll probably go to Edmundston, New Brunswick, roughly,
Okay. All right.
and stop there overnight.
Excellent. Oh, that's pretty decent trek on the first day.
Yeah, it's usually my stop when I'm heading east.
Okay. Cool. All right. Because you are on the road, I definitely don't want to, take up a whole ton of your time. But
Where is here? I'm just gonna give a little
there we
clean
go.
up lens.
You're so much clearer now. There we go. Um, yeah. So I'm going to try and get to some of the meat and potatoes. But I would like, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit of, when you kind of got started in the industry of acting and what your motivation was to kind of get there, if you don't mind.
When I was young, I guess I was always, right in the middle of everything. So I was kind of what you call in my language in Mi'kmaq, they call it nail egg. And nail egg is somebody who, when there's something going on, they're right in there. So I was always that type of person. But I think uh, I was talking to a friend of mine years ago. He's named Stuart Cameron, and Stuart's a musician. He's John Allen Cameron's son. He's played with Ashley McIsaac and Amanda Marshall and a bunch of people. And he said when we were about 12, um, was one of the last times I saw him before I ran into him years later. And he said, do you remember saying, Glenn, asking me what I wanted to do when I got older? And I said, I wanted to play music like my dad. And you said, I want to be in movies and TV, maybe be famous. And we were about 12, and I was like, I had totally forgotten that I said that. But I didn't really think it was possible until 1987, I think it was, or 88, when the National Film Board made a film called Justice Denied, and it was the Donald Marshall story, who is my uncle in real life. And my grandparents played themselves in the film. I was only 17 at the time, but I was driving for my grandparents at the time, and then I got to be an extra in the courtroom scenes, and I got to meet all the main actors and the director and the producer, and then I got to work a day as a production assistant, and uh, and I was kind of bitten, I think, by the bug then, and it was I remember Billy Morasti, another great actor who's been around forever, was playing the role of my uncle, and I remember asking him. I said, "So you're a real Indian?" And he says, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, okay." And where'd you from? And he says, "Well, I'm from the trap line in Manitoba." I didn't even know what the trap line was. It was like, what the hell is that? And and he told me what the trap line was, and I was like, "Whoa!" And this is what you do? This is what you do for work? You do this? Like you act in movies and TV and everything? And he was like, he said, "Yeah." And he said, I said, "Oh wow." I said, "That's something else." And my mind just started going. And I was like, if this guy can go from the trap line, I think I can probably do it too. And he told me about Native Earth Performing Arts in Toronto, which was a theater company started by Thompson Highway and the late Renee Highway. And it's still there today. And at the time, it was the only equity Native theater company in the country. And there wasn't many Native theater companies in the country at all. But it was like 2 years later, I kind of got sick of everything in Cape Breton and life there and wanted to do something with my life. And I was like, so I went to Toronto. I knocked on the door of Native Earth Performing Arts, introduced myself as Glen Gould. I'm an actor. I'm new to Toronto and I'm looking for some auditions. Do you guys have any auditions? And they said, well, not at the moment, but if you keep coming to check our bulletin board, there's things that pop up on the bulletin board every now and then. So I was there every day for 3 months at that theater company. Sometimes I think I drove them a little crazy, but when I think back to it, it's like, no, they genuinely accepted me and took me in there under their wings and accepted me as part of the family. And then there was a call one day from the late Larry Lewis, who was a great theater director, who directed Dry Lips Ought to Move to Kapuskasing with Graham Greene and Gary Farmer and Tom Jackson and a whole bunch of them. It was a huge production. And Larry Lewis was the artistic director of a company in Manitoulin Island called the Bojamajic Theater Company. And he was looking for somebody to play a 16-year-old boy in a national tour of a play called Toronto at Dreamers Rock by Drew Hayden Taylor. And he said, well, do you want to audition? And I said, well, sure, I'd love to audition. And so he came a few days later to Toronto, and I auditioned, and he looked at me across the table and said, do you want the part? And I said, well, if I didn't want the part, I wouldn't be here.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And he says, okay, well, you got it. You're in. And there's 3 roles in that play. And there's the main character, and then there's 2 other characters, one from the past and one from the future. I got the role of the guy from the future, which was the smallest of the 3 roles. And the guy that was supposed to play the main character, Rusty, backed out at the last minute. And it was like, I think the day before rehearsals started, and I was already in Manitoulin Island. And it was Herbie Barnes was directing. And Herbie and Larry came to me and said, hey, we think you can handle this lead role. So we want you to play Rusty. And I was okay, great. I got the lead character in the play. And I did it, and I went on the road for almost 5.5 months. I was on the road with that play.
Oh wow! Okay.
And that was my introduction to the world of acting. Setting up our own stage, no lights, no sound, basic wardrobe, and 3 guys with a couple of tables that clamped together, and 3 different size boxes that went on each corner of the stage, and it was theater in the round.
Nice.
That was my first ever introduction to the world of acting.
So when did you make the transition? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I forgot all my lines on opening night.
Oh, really? Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you figure it was nerves or?
Oh yeah, totally. I looked out and I saw the strings on my jeans shaking, and I went. That was it. Everything went out the window.
All right. Well, I get that, honestly. Yeah. Especially first night, first time, for sure, man. Yeah.
Ever, yeah.
So when did you make the transition from that to film?
Well, I did a lot of theater. I was busy. I was constantly doing theater tours all over the country with different companies like Theater New Brunswick's Young Company, Fire Hall, Theater in Vancouver. We toured British Columbia. Um, Another theater out of company out of Whitehorse. We toured the Yukon. The Bajamajig, I toured with them again. We did an Ontario tour. Two Planks and a Passion. We did a Nova Scotia tour. Like I was all over the place, and then I moved to Vancouver. And when I moved to Vancouver, um, I got my first. Was it there? No, Toronto. I got my first TV speaking role, um, which was like I had experienced some tragedy in my family um, in 1992 while I was doing the Theater New Brunswick's Young Company tour. I lost my parents in a car accident. And they were en route to see the show. So I had a little bit of a blip in my career. And I came back, that summer, and nobody really hired me because I was a mess and people could tell. I went home, and then I came back a year later, and I got my first speaking role, which was ENG, Electronic News Gathering. It was an old series. And I played, I had no idea what I was doing. I was bullshitting my way through everything, really. And I got this guest starring role in an episode of ENG playing Donald McKenzie, a Mohawk cigarette smuggler. And it was a lot of fun, though. I got to work with Jerry Ciccaretti was the director. And I remember when he was giving me direction and stuff, like I didn't know about camera angles. I didn't know about eye lines. I didn't know anything. I was just doing it. And I was a natural. And every time Jerry gave me direction, I'd just take it in and I'd go, oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. And then at one point he says, hey, after you get shot at with behind the Cadillac there and these gunmen come, he goes, and you pop up and you look at the main character from the show. He says, can you just look at him and smile and say, cool? and then, yeah, I was like, sure, no problem. And that was my very first time doing television, and it just kind of went from there to, little roles here and there, and then they got bigger and bigger, and eventually it was small roles in films, and then over time it eventually became where I'm reading for bigger roles, I guess you can say, guest star, leads in series, leads in film. Yeah, and that's the journey.
So what was your kind of first, I guess you could say, recurring, say, either starring role, I guess, more or less? Like I know you were in Cardinal there for a while, but I'm sure you had something before that.
Yeah, before that, I think the first recurring role that I got in a series would have been either Mohawk Girls or Blackstone, maybe Mohawk Girls. No, before Mohawk Girls was Cashing In. Actually, yeah, Cashing In was a big one. I was number 3 lead in that show.
Nice.
And that came actually. I had quit acting and left Vancouver. I had fired my agent. I had resigned from the union and went home to become a lobster fisherman.
Okay.
And was fishing for a bit of the summer there, and then I got a call from Phyllis Lang from Buffalo Gals Pictures in Winnipeg, and she says, Glenn, we have this new series that we have with APTN called Cashing In, and it's all revolves around the casino and stuff, and we have a character that we kind of wrote for you, who's the native rancher, and he's like the good guy that everybody likes. And I said, well, geez, that's too bad because I'm not acting anymore. I'm done. I'm resigned. I'm retired. And she said, well, you can't retire. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, we need you. We need you, Glenn. So I said, okay, well, let me read the scripts then. And so she let me read the scripts. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a pretty cool character, like it's riding horses and stuff. And, and then the thing was, is it had a love interest. And at the time I was with a really jealous woman. And so I called Phyllis back and I said, you know what, Phyllis, I can't do this. And she goes, why not? I said, well, the kissing scenes and the sex scenes, the nudity, all that stuff. I said, one, I don't kiss anybody. And she said, what do you mean you don't kiss anybody? I said, in TV or on camera. And she goes, well, that's not going to work for this character. Why is that? And I said, well, I have a really jealous woman here, and it wouldn't go over too good. And she says, well, do you want me to talk to her? And I said, no, I don't want you to talk to her. That's going to make everything worse. And so I mentioned it to my gal at the time. I said, look, these guys want me to do this series, and it's a supporting lead. The only thing is there's a love interest, and there's some love scenes and a lot of kissing. And World War III broke out. And I said, I didn't even take the gig yet. I didn't even say yes. I'm just talking to you about it. And in the end, I did the math and figured, well, in 7 weeks I can make X amount of dollars. And I dropped that on the table, and things changed a little bit then.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Although they took a lot of the love scenes out of this first season and took quite a few kissing scenes out for my sake.
Okay, interesting. All right.
And then for, I think, the next season, I came back and I said, you know what, throw them all in there if you can, if you want to, because oh, hang on, somebody's pulling up here. Hello. Hi. I have no idea, man. I'm just doing an interview on my phone here. So just a while back there was gas at exit 88. It's the only thing I know, man. I don't know. You might be better off turning around and going to 88, exit 88 back there. Where are you coming from? You're heading west? 88, exit 88. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's perfect stuff for live feeds. I love that. just throw stuff like that in there.
Like, somebody's pulling up here. I was ready to pull my knife out.
Yeah, right. Just in case.
Just in case. So, yeah, I guess that's what happened there. Is that I took the gig in the second season. They put all the love scenes in, and that lady and I split up, and that was pretty much it. I got pulled back into the business right there and then, and I think the same year I played Phil Fontaine in the movie Elijah for CTV. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened that year. Okay. I was busy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm going to dive a little bit right into your more recent role on Outlander, because I think that's why some folks might be watching. So I'm just kind of curious as to the audition process for one thing to get for that role that you did for Chief Bird.
Oh wow! Well, I had read for season 4 3 times.
Oh, okay.
I read, and at one point I shaved my goatee off, which I never do. And then another audition, I think I put on my powwow regalia, part of it, my choker and my roach and everything, and then translated. They wanted us to translate it into a language, our own languages, just for the sake of the audition. I didn't get in on the on season 4, after 3 auditions, and I was kind of ticked, right? And I was like, oh, actors, we get a little pissy sometimes.
I
And
hear ya.
and so then it came up again for season 6, and I said to my agent, I said, send them my demo reel. I'm not putting any time into this again, because they wasted, as far as I was concerned, they wasted my time. The last time I said, they know what I'm capable of. They've seen me 3 times, and they can make a decision based on my demo reel. So we sent them the demo reel, and they came back and they said, you're the director's first choice, but you need to do a tape. So I did a tape, and that was it. I was cast as Chief Bird, and next thing you know, the wheels were in motion for me to get everything I needed to get over to Europe during the pandemic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because you were in Scotland, I think, right at the time.
Yeah, we were 10 days in London, England. I'm just going to move this because the sun is affecting the. There we go. Um, yeah, we were in London, England for 10 days. We had to quarantine there, and then we went over to Scotland, to Glasgow and the area from there. For 2 months, we were out there.
Nice, nice. And what was it working with Sam? Because I've definitely got some lady folks that I know that would be interested to know how Sam was.
Sam, Sam is Sam is amazing. He's a very, very down to earth, humble, kind, thoughtful man. There's no ego with that guy whatsoever. And he's a dude. He's a dude. He's a Scottish dude who grew up in the country, and he's just a very, very nice guy, down to earth. Actually threw a 50th birthday thing for me at his estate, which
Oh wow.
was nice, because I was traveling on my 50th birthday, and at one point he says, how old are you, Glenn? I said, I'm going to be 50 next week, man. And he says, oh, next week? What's your birthday? I said, June 6th. And he goes, aren't you guys traveling on that day? And I said, yeah. You're not going into quarantine on your birthday, are you? And I was like, yep, 3 days at least in Toronto. And he's like, that's not right. That's your 50th. He goes, that's a big one. All right, we're gonna have a barbecue at over at my new place, and we'll invite a bunch of the cast over from the show, and so we went there, and my buddies ended up putting together his barbecue for him because it was still in a box when we got there. We shot some. He got a hold of some bows and arrows and an archery target so that we could just shoot arrows in the backyard and barbecue and hang out, and he was really good guy to work with.
No, that's yeah. I always love hearing those stories about guys, at kind of his level or whatever. I'm just gonna throw up a photo here real quick of the two of you, just for folks that might want to see that. And obviously that's on set. And um, how many days were you on set for this role?
We were on. Let me see. Really, not that many days. Maybe 5 total.
Okay.
Yeah, people keep stopping here. It's like he just stopped and looked at me and kept going. This old guy.
Maybe they're worried that you're broken down or something. I don't know.
But yeah, probably. Yeah, so it was only about 5 days total. I mean, they had us for, I think they said 10 days of shooting, but we didn't do 10 days of shooting. We
Okay.
had more time off than we did, working. So it was kind of like it was like being on vacation over there.
Nice. And it's a great place to vacation. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And you know what? I have a cousin that lives in a little town called Fairley on the coast there, outside of Glasgow, not far. So it was nice to go see her and her husband and her kids too.
Yeah, no doubt, eh? Absolutely. So when it comes to because I have to admit I haven't actually watched any of season 6 at this point. So when it comes to who your character is and what's your character's role within the show, I guess, at this point.
Well, who's Chief Bird, who sings in the morning, is his full name, and he's the chief of a Cherokee tribe. And so Sam's character, Jamie, becomes the Indian agent. So he has to deal with, the native people in the show. So he's dealing with the Cherokee tribe, and when he's dealing with the Cherokee tribe, he's dealing with me, the chief, and my brother, who's the war chief, played by Simon Baker. And so my whole thing was, I wanted weapons, I wanted guns, and I needed to get them through Jamie, and with a promise of that I would fight with them, not
Gotcha.
not not fighting with them like fighting like one on one with them, but fighting alongside of them if they gave us guns. So that was basically the storyline. There is that we got some muskets and we rode off to rescue Claire.
Nice,
With the
nice. So I don't know, because I think it's still. Um, I don't know if you can say this. I don't know if this is considered a spoiler or not. But is there potential for Chief Bird to come back or be around
I
longer?
can't really say too much, but I
Yep.
just know that
eh,
I'm not there right now.
Fair enough. I just thought I'd check.
Yeah, I mean, if people read the books, I think they have an idea of what happens. The end of the season, I mean, he goes off to rescue Claire, so it kind of, it does set up for, you know, them coming back to rescue her. But at this point, I'm shooting a bunch of other stuff and I haven't really heard anything yet.
Fair enough. And just out of curiosity, were you familiar with Outlander before you, like, even from season 4 when you auditioned? Then were you familiar with Outlander before that?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at I had no idea. I'd never seen it. Um, I was just like, yeah.
And for us folks in this industry, that's not uncommon for sure. Um, we're just looking to get work, right? So,
Right.
so you know what? We're already coming up to that 30-minute mark, and I know you probably want to get back on the road, but I do have a couple more, hopefully, quick things for you. Um,
Sure.
the one thing I wanted to kind of ask is, um, have you had any struggles through your career as being an Indigenous actor? Like, um, have you ever had roadblocks that you've kind of had to work around? And then I have a
Uh,
follow up to that one.
aside from being pigeonholed, I think that was one of the only challenges. I think, but also I've had personal challenges in my life, with different things, tragedies, getting married young and having a young family. I've had my battles with alcoholism and addiction, drug addiction and stuff. So, I mean, I think those were probably two of my biggest obstacles of anything in regards to my career would be substance abuse. So that I had to get that under control because I really almost became blacklisted because of because of my drinking and because of my drug use and so that was one of the biggest hurdles I think. And other than that is just being pigeonholed and trying to convince agents and casting directors to think outside the box because Indigenous actors we're the only race of actor who is still marginalized in North American cinema. Nobody else. If you watch any mainstream television show out there, American or Canadian, um, you'll see mainstream characters from every other walk of life except for Native. We're always playing Native. We
Right.
don't we don't always like I get those opportunities now more so because I'm pushing for it. Like I did Girl with Bella Thorne and Mickey Rourke. And my character wasn't native in that. He was just a guy. And I think that's one of the challenges in North American cinema, television, and film is that at some point, Indigenous people, Native Americans need to be accepted as part of mainstream society so that we're not marginalized anymore. You know, I'd like to be playing, an investigator or a computer analyst or whatever, that East Indian actor is playing, or that Asian actor is playing, or that black actor is playing. You see all those races playing mainstream characters where there's no focus on their ethnicity.
Right.
But
Right.
but you never see that with Native people. It's we're just pigeonholed.
And like, have you seen any change in that regard? Like, do you feel that trend might be changing, or not?
Uh,
Not yet.
it depends. I mean, it's slowly changing, but even with Cardinal, I mean, Cardinal was a great show to do, but I was playing Detective Jerry Commando, who was a native OPPD officer, a native police officer. And you got my buddies like Nathaniel Arcan, for instance. He was doing FBI's Most Wanted, but he's playing an native FBI agent. There always has to be a focus on you know our ethnicity when we're playing our roles, and it's very rare that they come up. There was another show that I did called Hard Rock Medical, and I remember like Derek Diorio and I are good friends to this day, and he says, "Glenn, I'll never forget what you said to me when you came up to shoot that show, and you said thank you for casting me as the warden and not the inmate." So
Yeah.
there was two of us that came from Toronto, and there was a non-native actor and me, and we were in the same episode, and the inmate character was like shitting in the woods and stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm so glad you didn't make that me,"
Yeah. Fair
because
enough.
most people out there would have said, "Oh no, make more sense that the native is the inmate. You can't have a native warden." But Derek thought outside the box and went, "No, I'm going to cast Glenn as the warden."
Okay. Yeah. No, it's a start, right? It's something.
We need
Yeah.
guys like Derek. Yeah.
And so, for any other Indigenous actor looking to break into the scene, would you have any advice for them?
Uh, Unless you really, really look super, super native, like with the long hair and the chiseled features, I would say just try to push yourself as an actor first and foremost, which is a big challenge, rather than an actor who is native. And that's one thing. Like my daughters actually deal with this, and they're half native, but they're raised in the city. They don't know anything about being on the res or anything like that. And my youngest daughter, she says, "I don't know what to do, Dad. I want to audition and stuff, but I'm auditioning for these characters that I can't relate to." And I said, "Well, get a new agent and don't tell them you're half native. Just tell them you're a mixed blood.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm exotic. That's all. I'm
Yeah.
a Heinz 7, and in that way you won't get pigeonholed." So I think that's an important thing for especially contemporary Native people, is that if you have a look that's pretty versatile and is not identifiably like Native, try to stay away from it.
Okay.
If you can't, I mean, we do need actors to play those roles, but if you can get other roles where you're not playing a Native, then go for it if you can.
For sure. And I want to kind of touch on Julian Black Antelope, for example. I had
Right.
him on the show, like season one of this, and one of the things that he said still kind of resonates with me. He's like, when you're writing a script and you're creating a character, you should be able to fit absolutely anybody into that character,
Yeah.
regardless, sex, doesn't matter, race, whatever. They
Yeah.
should be interchangeable. You can put anybody in, and I think that's absolutely correct, right? I mean, yes, you are going to have certain roles, I think, that maybe need a little bit of that
Yeah,
pigeonholing, if you will. But at the same time, you should, like, for example, let's say you have an Indigenous character and you have the um, detective, for example. Well, that
right.
detective does not need to be Indigenous, right? It can be anybody.
Could be anybody.
So, and I know that's where he was kind of going with that, and that still kind of resonates with me, and I think that's
Yeah.
a very true point.
Well, it's this whole thing of the colorblind casting. You know, I think casting directors are trying to do it. Production companies are trying to do it. But for some reason, I think it's mainstream society, and I think part of that is that Native people, wherever Native people live, close to towns or whatever, they're on the res, and it's like it's the reservation. That's where the Indians are, and I think that mentality is hard for North Americans to break out of. That the Indians only are over there, you
Hmm.
know, and I think that's really a direct, like us being marginalized is a direct result of that. And I think until society accepts Indigenous people as mainstream people, the same way they do with Black people and Asian people and Indo-Canadian and all that, um, I think that then it's a bit of a ways to go. You know what I mean? It's hard
Yeah,
to explain it, but um, I think that's part of it too. Is that we're just not accepted into mainstream society in general. So that's part of the reason, largely, why we're so marginalized in cinema.
yeah, no, that's fair. I think so. Anyway. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah,
Hopefully that does change.
yeah, they can put the colorblind casting out there, but until the mentality of people changes, that we're not just those Indians who are over there, then that mentality has to go
Yeah, yep.
before we can, I think, break down those barriers fully.
No, I tend to agree with you for sure. Um, I mean, so on that note, I think we'll kind of let you go because I know you want to get back on that road. Um, but I do want to thank you for taking the time to sit with me on the road, probably in a hot car at this point.
Not so bad. It's not so bad. There's a little bit of a breeze. Uh, I parked it so I'm not sitting directly in the sun.
There you go. Nice, nice. And yeah, have a safe trip and all that. And we'll hopefully see you on another series here shortly. But I will ask you to stick around just for a couple more minutes. And other than that, everybody else, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next week for next week's episode.
Be safe out there.